All right, so this is a new segment, new part of the podcast where we're going to be talking about sports contracts. And the first one is a fun one, Aaron Judge. So you want to get started with him? I mean, you're a Yankee fan, so.
Yeah. All right. So, as you probably know, Aaron Judge is entering the last year of his arbitration rookie contract. So he'll be a free agent after the 2022 season. And he's sure to have no shortage of suitors. So today we're going to discuss what we think is fair value for an Aaron Judge contract. We're going to compare it to other outfielders and players of his stature. And we're going to look at what would be not only fair for the team, but fair for him and what we would do. So with that in mind.
So you want to sign him early if possible. You don't want to let him have to play a full season, because if he goes out there and hits like 50 bombs, someone's going to overpay. Like, the Dodgers maybe, if they don't have the team they want, right? Because they just lost that on Sager. Different position, sure, but it matters.
Yeah.
Mookie Betts, but if the NL gets a DH, his value
can be in on it.
If the NL gets a DH, Judge's value will be through the roof, and someone might offer him a 10-year at that point.
Can't rule it out.
Someone might be desperate. I mean, for a DH in the National League, but So I mean, he's had that one monster year, 52 bombs, 114 RBIs. The year where he had the MVP stolen from him.
Should have won it, yeah.
I mean,
and the thing is, he even, in my opinion, still had better stats than Altuve. Like even without the scandal, even without it, he still should have won.
The only thing Altuve beat him in was strikeouts, stolen bases, and batting average.
Yeah,
that's it. I mean,
pretty much.
You could argue. I mean, home runs and RBIs, such a big difference, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, triples. Right.
Yeah,
that's it. That's what Altuve beat him in, speed and batting average.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that year, sure, he hasn't been healthy for most of it. He had a pair of 27 homer years, right? Then the shortened season.
Yeah.
Last year he was definitely improved, right?
Yeah. I mean, he was finally able to stay healthy for the full season.
The batting average was a career high, right? 287.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
39 homers. I mean, he probably could have gotten the 40, I think. I think the last week he just kind of fell off a tick. 98 RBIs, right? He probably, if the Yankees were, not
an offensive team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the Yankees weren't a strikeout offense, that's what they are. They're a strikeout offense.
And I mean, DJ LeMahieu, if he was on the same level he was the year before, Judge would have gotten more RBIs for sure, because he bats right ahead of him.
That's also a hard ask though, because LeMahieu, honestly, he's compared to the rest of the Yankee lineup, he's the one consistent factor, even when he's not playing well.
Yeah,
right.
It's true. You know what to expect.
He's one of those guys that doesn't play well and gets on base. So I don't think you can expect more than like 110 RBIs from Judge, unless the Yankees lineup improves. And I don't know if giving him a big contract will let them do that, right? Because they have Stanton on a massive deal. Like, I think you can't even look at the Stanton contract and think, okay, Judge deserves this right now. Because that was, first off, Judge is turning 30, right?
Yeah. It's a different situation, I think.
And Stanton was 25, and even then that was a massive deal.
Yeah.
Plus, Stanton was killing it at Marlins Park.
Yeah, and also the Marlins are desperate to keep him too. He was like their only star, and then they had to lock him in pretty much.
I guess they didn't know about Yelich yet.
Yeah.
and Ozuna getting better once he left. I mean,
yep.
That Marlins team, right? D. Gordon, Jose Fernandez. That was such a good team. Like that, I remember watching them, and I was like, "Dang, the Mets are in trouble." I remember thinking, like, watching them, especially when Fernandez used to pitch. That was such a good Marlins team, and they were desperate. They were desperate for Stanton, and that ended up being a stupid move for them. I guess it worked out giving him to the Yankees, but
it kind of is what they moved on.
Yeah. So let's look at the concern with Judge first, right?
Yeah.
Strikeout totals. That goes for half their lineup, though. I don't think the Yankees are concerned about that anymore.
Yeah, they're kind of just living with it. Especially when you look at his peak production, batting.
When his
every
strikeouts are at
year.
the highest with him, when
Yeah,
his strikeout percentage is high, his home runs are at the high,
yeah.
which kind of
His
makes sense.
slugging, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, his weighted on base average, it's consistently between about 370 to 400, which is
Yeah.
like the elite tier of hitters. So I mean, when he's even when he's not healthy, he's still producing. It's just a matter of the rate stats like home runs and RBIs and stuff.
Like when Brandon Nimmo started his year, didn't get a hit for
Yeah,
like 2 weeks and had a 500 on base, and you're like, how?
yeah.
He-
And that's the thing. Judge is decent. He's a decent on base guy too.
That's
He's
why
not the,
yeah.
yeah,
He
not the
works in
same
the
as he
two
used to
hole.
be.
That's why he could work in the two
Yeah,
hole for the Yankees. He's a
yeah.
perfect 2 hole hitter for them. So concerns with him, I guess strikeouts aren't really a concern if you let Gary Sanchez still have a job. I mean,
Yeah,
right? If you
yeah.
have guys like Sanchez, Gallo, and Stanton, Judge isn't even a high strikeout guy compared to them.
Comparison, yeah, it's true. I guess
So
injuries. Injuries are
injuries,
probably the
yeah.
biggest thing.
So I mean, you want to run through his injuries?
Yeah. So the big one that I can remember off the top of my head was 2018. He was midway through one of his better years. He was coming off the runner up to the MVP season, and he took a fastball to the elbow, and that took him out like 2 months. And he never really recovered that year. Even going into the playoffs, you could tell he was kind of off.
I would think forearm and wrist injuries for hitters.
Yeah,
That has to hurt your power.
definitely. He was off that rest of the year. Then he had just like miscellaneous injuries throughout the 2019 season, and then towards the end, towards I think it was in September, he was diving for a ball in the outfield, and he came down hard, and he didn't know at the time, but they found out about a month later he punctured his lungs and broke a rib, and they didn't even know.
Which is a
So he was a
freak
little off.
injury. That's a pretty freak injury. I mean,
Yeah. So I mean, when you look at it like that, I mean, the injuries, you might even say that's kind of overblown because it's not like he's a guy that's just having like chronic injuries like a David Wright.
yeah, I mean
It's more,
but see, that's like a long term gonna affect his whole career type injury.
yeah, it's more
Now,
just like freak stuff
yeah, I mean
for
he had
Judge.
that calf strain, right?
Yeah,
That bugged him. The concern with that I remember was like into playoffs type stuff. Obviously the collapsed lung was like, what the hell is going on there?
yeah, that was just crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what was happening there. That was just a crazy. The issue with that was you didn't know. I don't think any baseball guys ever saw that. I think
Yeah,
like in football or hockey, you might get something like that here and there.
yeah,
But
football, yeah, for sure.
for like a baseball outfielder,
Yeah, I think
unless you
that might
like,
just freakish.
he had that oblique strain.
Yeah, that's how it's concerning. That's
Um,
one of those things.
and obliques are like you hurt your oblique, you might hurt that again at some point. Especially
Yeah,
as an outfielder. Outfielders are kind
that
of prone to that.
that was the big one.
He's also a big guy, let's be honest. His legs are gonna take a real beating. So he had that chip fracture in his wrist.
Yeah,
He had a shoulder surgery.
yeah, I think that was because that was 2019.
Shoulder surgery was 2017-18.
Oh, really? Okay.
And
Okay.
then
Yeah.
so back in 2016, he had another oblique strain. So he had 2 different oblique strains and they seem to be getting worse. So there's some
Yeah.
concern there. But I guess, I mean, the Yankees know his medical history better than anyone.
Yeah, for sure. Also, they did bring in a new strength and conditioning coach right before the 2021 season, and I will say, he didn't have any injuries this year, so they
Yeah.
may have a new approach that'll help his oblique.
I mean,
That's the really big concern.
Even Stanton was healthy the whole year.
Yeah,
So,
so
I mean,
that was very surprising.
yeah.
So that may be a positive consequence of our new strength and conditioning coach.
All right, now let's look at a Judge Stanton comparison.
Yeah.
So clearly, if you just judge Stanton from the day he became a Yankee, right, onwards to the end of that deal, which I think is what, 2024? Let's check that.
Yeah, Stanton.
Yeah, Stanton.
I think 2024, 25, I think.
Let's pull that up. Okay. Whoa, that's a long deal. For Stanton, wow.
It's
2028.
2028, yeah.
Wow.
That's with an opt-out, team opt-out.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
it's a
not
player.
bad.
Oh, is it? It's a team, yeah.
Team?
Yeah,
Okay. That's
that would be a team
crazy.
now.
Even like
It was 12 years.
even
Yeah.
even 4 or 5 more years of him, I think that'd be crazy.
Yeah.
That's wow.
He'll
Okay.
he'll be a full DH type.
Yeah.
Definitely, for sure.
So I don't even think you can give Judge what's left on Stanton's deal
Yeah. I mean,
because let's see, 7 years
yeah.
at
The thing is,
the thing is like the price goes up for a little bit,
yeah,
then
I was gonna say
down,
that his contract,
right?
it goes up as he gets older, which is not what you want. But if
Until
you want it to be descending,
until he hits 36 and it goes down.
yeah.
But even
I saw
then,
that was the Marlins.
it's not a lot of money though. I mean, when
Yeah,
it
for the
goes down.
Yankees,
For the
yeah,
Yankees, 30 million is like
it's fine.
they could pay 4 or 5 guys that before they have a problem.
Yeah, and also a lot of guys are coming off the Yankees books. Like right now, they're kind of like, I mean, if you want to use the term capped out, because it's not a cap, but to them, the luxury tax is a cap. But in the next few
The
years,
luxury tax
Zach,
is capped for like
everyone,
more than 3 years. Yeah.
yeah, but Zach Britton's coming off the books, not after the 2022 season.
And you're not
Um,
re-signing Britain.
no, he's too old.
You're getting a new reliever. Yeah, fill the role. Maybe cheaper.
Joey Gallo, if they don't re-sign him, will be gone. That's $9 million off the books. Chapman, we have no idea how much he's going to sign for, but it'll be less if he signs.
I don't even know if he's worth it at this point because it seems like in big games for the Yankees, he just falls apart and he's prone to those stretches.
Yeah, and they already have Jonathan Loizaga, who's basically they're grooming him to be his replacement, and he's like, much younger.
Yeah.
So I think they overspent in the bullpen.
The Yankees clearly have money, right?
Yeah.
Now, giving him the remainder of Stanton's contract clearly isn't worth it, right? Yeah, because Judge is 30 years old now, right?
Mm-hmm.
You give him 8 years, right? That's too much.
Yeah. I think 7 is the high that you want to go.
Mm-hmm. Could you see a 4 or 5 year crazy money deal? Maybe even a 3 year like Scherzer type deal? 3 year 40?
3 years, I don't think I could see, but if you told me it was going to be 5, I wouldn't be crazy shocked with you. I think the Yankees right now, they want to avoid ripping up his contract right now, which they won't do because they're already going to go. They're going to give him around 17 million for this year. Because I know they want to avoid the luxury tax ideally this year, probably. Or
because,
if
you want to avoid it now so that later you're fine. I mean,
or even sign a free agent like Correa.
The only team that really should go over this year maybe is the Dodgers or the Mets.
Yeah,
I don't think the Yankees should bother this year because I don't think they're going to improve enough with who's available. The exception would have been like Corey Seager.
Yeah, or Correa. I think Correa still is another option.
Yeah, but for the Yankees,
I think so.
I mean, it's hard to justify bringing in Carlos Correa
because the baggage.
After 2 down years and that cheating scandal, and then basically saying Jeter didn't deserve his Gold Gloves.
Yeah, I do think you could make an argument he'd be the best player on the Yankees though.
Yeah, when he's at his best, yeah.
Yeah, or at worst, second best.
Which is kind of sad, but.
Yeah, I mean Correa. I mean he is a top of the line shortstop.
Well, that's the thing. There's so many good shortstops now, right? It's kind of the era of shortstops. It looks like we're back to that little zone where we have a ton of good shortstops. I mean, between Seager, Correa, Lindor, that trio, and that's not even that's just the top few. There's others. Like you got Baez, Baez in the past, we were like, oh, he's gonna be best shortstop in baseball at some point.
Trey Turner.
Trey Turner is amazing. He's one of the best. You could argue all these guys have qualities that can make him the best shortstop in baseball. Mm-hmm. I mean, Trey Turner is the fastest man alive, I think, in baseball, like period right now. I think he's if you have to pick a safe bet for who's gonna like put the closest up to like Ricky Henderson type stolen base numbers, it's him. Shortstop though is just insane, and the fact the Yankees don't have one compared to all the other top teams, that's the difference.
And it's such an easy fix, though. That's the thing. There's 2 guys out there right now, and they have the money. I think they will get one of them. I think they'll get Correa or Trevor Story. I think so. If you put it in that perspective,
I mean, here's the thing about Story, right? You have to hope that he has a LeMahieu type ability leaving Coors Field, right? Now, Story hasn't done bad outside of Coors Field, but he hasn't exactly been, that elite 35 homer guy outside of Coors Field. So sure, he's moving to Yankee Stadium. And let's be honest, Yankee Stadium's not that different.
Yeah,
But that's another thing to talk about with Judge. I mean, his home stats and his stats at AL ballparks, AL East ballparks, are very, very good. But his stats when he goes to play teams out west aren't as good. That goes for most players, right?
yeah,
But I mean, also his playoff stats aren't that good overall, but the Yankees in the playoffs haven't been that good. So
yeah. It's kind of like a team-wide symptom. They tend to fall asleep in the playoffs. The bats,
ideally, the Yankees would find someone that is a playoff producer.
Correa.
Yeah, Correa, perfect example, and can really just hit on the West Coast, which also Correa. We've seen
Yeah.
him hit at those ballparks.
So let's say they bring in Correa or Story just for argument's sake. I think
I mean,
that goes back to what.
both of them could kind of fill the role, right?
Yeah, either one would be fine with. So that kind of goes back to what you're saying about length. So if they bring in someone like Correa, let's just say 8 years, right? That's probably
Mhm.
what it's going to take. So then you might be thinking, do we want Judge for that 8 years? What if we can do 5 years at a maybe slightly
And you
inflated
know what?
annual
Judge's
value?
incentive to take that contract might increase because now you have a guy like Correa who can fill that issue, some of the issues that the Yankees have had. Clearly, I think maybe you have to still look at like a replacement for Gallo long term.
Long
I,
term, yeah,
I don't
sure.
think like next year he's fine, but I don't think Gallo's the right guy for a long term deal, right?
Yeah,
Especially for the Yankees. I mean, if they
unless he
had,
proves it this year.
he would have to really prove it. I mean, he's a guy that's can hit 40, so I think you got to really like crush the ball. So
If he can do that, then there's definitely an argument for it.
then you have three guys that hit 40 guaranteed almost, like a gimme, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
and then
unless they're healthy.
Correa is more of a he's more balanced. So, I mean, that's a really very strong offensive team
Is
and defensively too.
Correa your number 3 hitter in that lineup?
Um, yes, I think so. I would say two, but I think Judge is just kind of he's stuck there.
You also
I
don't
think
want to move Judge, really.
yeah, they tried that last year. They swapped Judge and Stanton for a little bit because the
Mhm.
Yankees are trying anything because it was just so bad. But I think Judge is probably you'll keep him at number two. You can put
So
Correa 3 and Stanton clean up. It's perfect.
if you only get 35, 40 homers, 100 RBIs peak from Judge with like a 280 batting average for the next 5 years, 6 years, do you think it's worth giving him even 35 million?
I think so. I
I think
think
so.
that level that's like what 6 WAR per year
Yeah.
with his defense, maybe even more in some some
I
crazy
mean,
years.
if he plays a bit more center field, even,
Yeah,
right?
which he can do. He
Yeah.
can do.
I mean, he's definitely not an elite outfielder outside of right field,
Yeah,
right?
but he can fill in.
You don't want to put him in left. You don't want to put him in center. He doesn't really play those positions as well. He's a true right fielder, though.
Yeah,
And let's be
he's a
honest,
very good right
not a
fielder.
lot of guys have the arm to play right field at a peak level. I mean, even guys like look at Stanton now moving back to the outfield.
Yeah,
he struggled. I don't even know if he even knows what's going on out there sometimes.
yeah,
And
he was serviceable.
he was a Gold Glove right fielder, right in the past, left fielder in the past. So I don't know. Like you never know, right? If you DH Judge for a year, let's say because of injuries, you never know if that contract's gonna be worth it.
Well, I mean, you could also they don't have a long term answer at first base, so 5 years down the line, you could put Judge at first. I could see that
I
putting
don't
Judge at
know.
first.
I mean,
You could teach
the
him.
position,
You
yeah.
got to teach him, yeah. But it's an option
Mhm.
if you don't want to go
One
full
other thing I
DH.
thought about for the Yankees, right? So right now, in theory, they have what? Judge, Stanton, Gallo for outfield. Who else is there?
Well, you have Judge and Wright. I
Gallo
think
and
with
Stanton.
Stanton, what they're going to do is starting him off. They're going to put him in DH. But I think towards like the middle, towards the end of the season, they'll start working him in the outfield a little more.
Who's the other?
It's Aaron Hicks will be coming back, but you can't count on him. You don't want to count.
He's also you don't want him long term at all, right? Like at
Yeah,
all.
he's
So
under contract. That's the only thing.
one thing I thought about that's probably very controversial, Conforto. You might get him. The Yankees might be able to convince him to take a slight pay cut, right, to stay in New York overall, and you might be able to convince him 5 years, 20 a year, right? If even, maybe even 15, 20, right? Because
Yeah,
you got to consider this is a guy that at his best when he's healthy, who isn't healthy often, but when he's healthy, could put up an MVP year. But he also he's done it at Citi Field.
Yeah.
You move him as a lefty to Yankee Stadium, he might put up 40 bombs, 120 RBIs. He might only hit 250, but that's an option. I think Conforto healthy at Yankee Stadium is the perfect player to play left field for them long term.
I think that's very intriguing.
It's a tough thing to sell, right? Because you got to realize he struggled with the Mets towards the end. And it got to the point where, honestly, the Mets didn't even want him back, right? They chose
Marte.
I mean, Marte was a better fit for what the Mets needed. But for the Yankees, Conforto, if he hits 40 bombs, I don't care. Like Conforto in a Mets uniform, his peak's like 35 at most, maybe 30, right?
I don't think the Yankees will go long term though. That's the thing.
But could they offer him a 3-year 25, 26, maybe even approaching 30? The same.
I think it would have,
because if Judge might be willing to take a 3-year 45 if he sees Conforto take a 3-year 30.
Yeah.
Right.
The question is, will he be able to get that kind of deal anywhere else? That's the question. Like, where are the suitors there?
You would think
he may have to take a 1-year deal.
You would think the Springer deal would be the best example of a type Conforto deal, but even that Springer was coming off a good season.
Yeah, he was more consistent. You got to give him that.
Springer was also a little older, coming off that peak season, and different types of players, right?
Yeah.
But if the Yankees think Conforto could fix him, right? Because he's the type of guy. If you fix him, you have a superstar. Yeah, right. But it could be a low risk, high reward thing for the Yankees because they have money that no one else can offer right now. Because the Mets are already out on Conforto, the Dodgers aren't touching him. They have no reason to. But the Yankees at Yankee Stadium, you might be able to turn him into an MVP candidate, which
That's interesting.
Especially if the Mets couldn't do it with him, right? And the Yankees turn around and do that with Conforto. That's it, right? That's amazing. And honestly, I don't think that many Mets fans would be opposed to seeing that because
it's interesting.
They love the guy, right? A lot of Mets fans wanted him back, even if it was a short-term cheap deal.
So what are we thinking final for a Judge contract?
What's the
highest you go?
Let's look at Yelich real quick, right? He's getting 26 a year.
Yep.
For
7?
7, yeah. So until 2029 when he's 37. Judge is 30, right? Today. Yelich had so here's the difference. Yelich batted 320, right?
Yeah.
That's
he's a slight better hitter.
For 2 years. For 2 years, he batted 320.
He's a better hitter, but inferior fielder.
Well, right now he's not a better hitter.
Well, yeah.
As of last season. At the time, you could have argued he was the best hitter in baseball.
Yeah.
Hitting 320, 40 bombs, 100 RBIs, right? That's Judge might be able to peak there, right about there. Not 320, but 300.
But 300, he did for most of the year last year. He was around 300. He just kind of slumped at the end.
That happens to a lot of guys. You know, that end of the year slump.
Yeah, he's capable of it though.
Yeah. I mean, walk rate, right? They're actually not that different. Judge has a few more walks, you could argue, because in that lineup, you'd rather pitch to Stanton or Sanchez than pitching.
He has more protection when
I mean, Yelich,
everyone's healthy. Yeah.
I mean, the on base is very similar, right? 400 plus on base consistently for the both of those guys. I mean, Stanton and Judge aren't as consistent with that because of strikeout totals. But the Yankees don't care about strikeouts. They just want power right now. If I'm the Yankees, 6 years, 30, maybe even give them 32, right? That's a worth it deal, I think. If you sign him early and then he goes out there and hits 50 bombs. But the other issue is, what if he goes out there, strains an oblique, right? Week 1, something like that, right? Then you got him out for 2 months, maybe, right? So the injury risk with the oblique is there. So if you could argue him down to a 5-year, even I would take 35 at that point.
That could be interesting. But I mean, I'd be comfortable even with the injury risk, 6 years at 30 million per, just because his peak value, and also you got to take into account the clubhouse value. He's that Derek Jeter captain type.
If he took 8 years, 25, What would you think?
What does that work out to? Like 210? What is that? That's the top of my head.
200, yeah. 825.
Yeah, I would do it. Yeah,
You do it? They pull the trigger on that?
just for the lower value, annual value.
Because I mean, 6 by 30 is 180. So I mean,
I would do it honestly.
2 more years, you're only paying an extra 20 million on the contract, and it's the Yankees. I don't think they care.
And you're probably going to sign, if you wanted to retire a Yankee, you probably want to sign up to something similar at the end anyway.
Yeah, I mean, at the end, you might be able to convince them to like a 10 million, like 10 million, like, you know, cheap little, one of those little deals.
Yeah, I think the Yankees gave Derek Jeter a 2 or 3 year extension, like at the very end, and that was it. So I mean,
to make sure they retire.
It's not a big deal. So yeah, I think that's fair value. I think Judge will live up to the expectations. He'll produce. I think he can be a cornerstone in the Yankees lineup for however long.
Let's look at a what if for the Yankees right now, right? They give Judge a 6-year, $180 million contract, 6-year, $30 million per year, which is expected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then they give Correa a 10-year. Let's say they actually do the crazy thing and give him 300, which would be that's crazy.
Can't rule it out.
You can't listen. He wants it, right?
Could happen.
He wants it. So, and then okay, so they have one more spot to fill. Let's say they have one more outfield spot, right? Long term. Let's say they pull in Conforto on a 3-year cheap deal, right? They actually can convince him to take it. You know what? Yankees might win a World Series with that team. If the pitching shows up and you get in 1 or 2 ace quality, you know, B-level aces.
Yeah, and then you maybe even make a trade at the deadline or something.
I mean, they're not going to pull a Mets. There's no more Scherzers out there, I think.
Yeah, but even so, I think the pitching staff is just fine. It's not what it was back.
You know what? There's a chance for. If Milwaukee falls off, they have 2 aces.
Burns.
They have 2 legitimate aces, and you know what? They might trade one of them.
And the Yankees have the prospect depth now. They have I wouldn't say depth. They have the top like 3 guys that everyone wants.
Same thing with the Mets, right? Brett Baty on top.
Yeah.
The issue is you don't want to trade those guys because you think they're going to pan out. That's the issue. It's not like
different.
For the Yankees, it's different because you think you have the positional value right now to go for it.
You want to win the World Series right now. That's the thing.
Yet again, though, I don't think the Mets signing Scherzer for 3 years, $45 million, says they don't want to win right now.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
I mean, here's the thing about the Mets, though. They actually believe that they could go over to luxury tax now, and then by the time those deals are up, like the time the Scherzer deal is expired,
do it again.
The prospects are going to be ready, right? That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's what the Mets are leaning towards. If the Yankees sacrifice those prospects now, the end years of that Judge deal, the end years of that Correa deal, the end years of that Conforto deal, right, could look horrific. Even if it's all hypothetical, right? That could look pretty bad.
I agree.
I would assume one of the 3 is going to still be producing late in their career, right?
Yeah.
My guess is it will be Judge hitting still around 30 a year as a DH minimum, right?
Well, I mean, yeah. But here's what I would say to that.
You could argue like Correa at third base.
Yeah, he'll move to third. But here's what I say. So let's say that happens, right? Let's say the Yankees go like all in money wise and everything we just said, and they win a World Series in the next 3 years. And then at the end of that, all those contracts, it's kind of rough. Well, I think there's no reason the Yankees can't do what they did 5 years ago all over again, when they pretty much had the same situation. Remember, the Yankees won the World Series in 2009. 5-6 years later, they're kind of aging, big contracts,
them all off,
and they traded and they did the youth movement. I mean, they could do that again,
and it worked perfectly.
It did. They're contending.
As perfect as it could have gone without winning World Series, pretty much.
It's true. Yep.
I mean, unless you're the Dodgers, or Tampa Bay Rays, who know how to. The Rays are the perfect. If the Yankees could learn how to do what the Rays are doing, but at a higher scale because they have more money. Like if the Yankees look at Conforto and they're like, okay, because I watched something from the Rays, if we play Conforto this way, we could fix him, right? Hypothetical stuff like that. Like there has to be certain players that are either playing out of position, right? Like who's the Yankee shortstop right now? Like right now?
No one.
Right?
I swear, no one.
Who played the most games there last year?
Gleyber Torres. He's not
a shortstop. So
second base.
His batting average, his entire like hitting wise sucked, right? Compared to
Yeah,
other years.
I think that's because of he played
Because
shortstop.
he played shortstop, right?
I think that's what it
So
is.
you got to look at a guy like Torres and say, okay, he's a third baseman, right? We put him at third base, let's say, for my team, or even
Second, yeah.
second base. And he all of a sudden becomes a 280 hitter who can hit 30 homers.
I think he will.
So let's say Tampa Bay looks at that, right? And Torres has another bad year or two, and then he's a free agent. Tampa Bay might sign him, pick him up cheap.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that Tampa does. They're good at that.
Yeah.
If the Yankees could learn how to do that, but with bigger money stuff, like let's say the Yankees are like, okay, this pitcher, we're gonna overpay him, right? We know his value is lower.
Yeah.
But because we think we can actually get him to that value point, we're gonna sign him. And the Yankees can afford to also take low money risk, right? Because they have money to throw around. They have money to throw. I mean, they could afford to throw an extra $3 million. But here's the other thing. They have to invest in a good coaching staff.
Yeah, I think they are doing that.
I think they're working towards
Rojas
it. I don't know if Aaron Boone long term is the answer, but you could argue that honestly, he hasn't been horrible. He just hasn't been good, right?
Yeah.
Like the same reason why the Mets got rid of Rojas. Rojas wasn't horrible. He just wasn't elite, right?
Yeah, and you see
it's hard to manage a baseball team. Let's be honest. I mean,
yeah,
we also don't know certain things as fans. Like we don't know how relievers are feeling that day or how hitters are feeling that day. We don't know if the coach knows when we don't, right?
There's a lot that goes into it.
Like we don't know if a reliever has a cold or something, right? Or his arm's a little sore, more so than usual, right? He can't pitch that day. We don't know that. So it's tough. These baseball decisions can't be made in a vacuum. Like we can't just look at the stats and say, okay, Judge deserves 6 years, 30 million a year. There's a lot of factors that go into this move. But if the Yankees can't afford to give him that deal first as the first move coming out of this lockdown, right? I guess a lockdown on baseball.
Yeah.
If the Yankees come out of it and give him 6 years, 180,
I'd be happy with that.
But that can't be the first thing they do. They have to either They have to either look internally and say, okay, what are we going to do, guys? Let's figure out our plan. But they probably have a plan right now.
Yeah.
Right. So my guess is the first thing they're going to do, you got to figure out what's happening at shortstop. That's the biggest hole.
I think they will.
That's the biggest hole in their team. I think odds are they're going to lean towards Trevor Story.
Yeah, I can see that.
I don't know if that's the right move long term. I like Story. He's an amazing player. He's a good guy, right? But I don't know if he's the right move for them. And I mean, moving the Yankee Stadium, his stats might stay the same. They might not, coming from Colorado. I mean, Colorado is like the only ballpark where you don't know if they can transfer to Yankee Stadium, right? Every other ballpark, you're like, okay, yeah, they're doing well at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
So you got to work with Story, right? Get a shortstop. Then they got to figure out, okay, then after they get a shortstop, then you look at Judge.
Yeah, I agree.
And after that Judge deal, then you fill in that last outfield piece.
Yeah, however you do it.
And then after that, you go after an ace pitcher. And that's your super team.
Yeah.
That's the team that's going to win a World Series for the Yankees. I would think the Judge contract, though, 6 years, 180, only if they think they can do it. If they don't get a shortstop, you might honestly be willing to offer him more money.
Yeah, because there's a bit of a gap in just financially. I agree.
You might be able to even give him that shorter deal finally, right? That you would ideally want. You might be able to get him on 5 years. So, I mean, this decision can't be made in a vacuum, but overall, 6 years, 180 is a good number. It's a pretty safe number for both.
That's where we arrived to, yeah.
I think that's our final value, 6 years, 180, right?
Yep.
All right, so that's it for the Judge contract. We'll see you guys on the next one.